Alright guys, welcome back to another one of our videos. And you might be wondering, why are we filming a video while I'm driving a car? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Alright, the reason we are in a car and not standing outside of our shop right now is because if you remember, if you watched one of our earlier videos, we were explaining why we're not rebuilding our motor. We're not rebuilding our motor because the previous owner said that it ran fine. We also did a compression test and all the cylinders were within what our research said was okay. They weren't great, but they were okay. So we replaced all the gaskets on our current motor because it was leaking. The main seal was leaking. I think the oil pan gasket was leaking. So we did replace all the gaskets, and obviously that took a lot of time because we've been making these videos. We still have two videos to put out, one on replacing the oil pan and the oil pump, and then one on replacing the rear main seal and the clutch. So what we're doing now is we're actually driving about 45 minutes away because we found on Facebook Marketplace a guy who has an FJ60. I think it's an 84, and he pulled the motor, transmission, transfer case out. It was running. He's sent me a video of it running, and he pulled that out because he's going to put an LS motor in it, and he doesn't need the motor anymore. So we're going to pick up, if it's in good shape, if we feel good about it, we're going to pick up the 2F motor and the 4-speed transmission, which I believe the transmission, I did a little research, and I think it's a little bit different than the 4-speed transmission that's in our FJ40. They changed for different 4 speeds around, I think, 1982, and this is a 1984, so it's going to be a little bit different 4-speed transmission. Honestly, I'm not really that interested in the transmission. We have a transmission that works good, and so we're going to probably stick with that. But what I do like about this motor is it runs, it's in very good shape. It has some stuff on it that we don't currently have. It's got an oil cooler, which my research online says that oil cooler, to buy one online with all the lines and everything, you're going to pay about 800 bucks. There's some debate online whether the oil cooler is worth having or not having, or just another place for oil to leak. I'm not sure that we'll use it, but they are expensive. So if we don't use the oil cooler, we might sell that online to recoup some of the cost of buying the motor. Also, there is a power steering pump on there, which again, ours does not have power steering, but if we decide later on to add power steering, we'll have a pump, or we may sell that pump again to try to recoup some of our expense. One last thing that I saw the motor has that we don't need is it's got the triangle shaped air cleaner element on top. We already have that because ours came with that, but I do know that people buy those for whatever reason. Theirs is missing. Someone replaced the air filter with a different element and lost that. And so I feel like between the transmission, the oil cooler, the power steering pump, and the air filter element on top, breather element, we'll probably be able to recoup all the money that we're paying to purchase this, but we'll be able to keep what we do need, which is the 2F motor. So down the road, if we get our current motor and our current FJ up and running and everything runs okay, but we decide we want to rebuild, we can either swap out those motors and rebuild the original motor that's in there now, or we can rebuild the one we have and drop that one in. So I just like the option of having another motor when we need it. One other thing I like about having this motor is everything's already hooked up. When he pulled it, he just pulled the motor, he unhooked everything as far as the fuel line from the gas tank, and took the coolant lines off from the radiator, and he just pulled it. So everything is on the motor. When we got our motor, the previous owner had pulled everything off the motor. He had already pulled off water pump and the thermostat and all that stuff. And so it'd be nice to have another motor that we can look at just for reference as we're putting ours together. And if we're missing a hose or a bracket or something, we might just take the one off of this extra motor that we have. All right, we're about to pull into the house where this 2F motor is, and hopefully they'll let us record. When we get there, I'm gonna ask the guy if we can record when we look at the motor. If not, we will definitely, when we get home, go over the whole thing and show you what all it has, and if we get it. We got to make sure we're going to get it first. But hopefully he'll let us record when we get here. We're almost there. We're about 100 yards, I think, away from his driveway. Man, this guy has got some cool stuff right here. Look at this rock crawler, old Toyota truck, decked out. Man, I bet this thing is bad on the trail. Full exoskeleton frame. That looks like a wastegate right there. You got a little turbo action on this thing. This is awesome. Man, I love that old van. That is sweet. Is it? This is nice. Oh, you already got the LS in there? Oh man, that looks awesome. You guys got it wired up and running and everything?
It's not running. I just finished wiring it the other day. I still got to build the fuse box.
You got the ECM flashed and all that?
Yep, I got to go pick it up today or tomorrow. It's ready to be picked up.
It's also got a Gen 1 4Runner right here. Rock crawler. Okay, so after we spent about 30 minutes walking around, drooling over all these awesome Toyota builds, we decided to go ahead and take a look at the 2F motor.
Like a Chevrolet 1-ton 5-speed transmission that goes behind the engine, and then converts it to that transfer case. Which I didn't know it, but the transfer case and the transmission on this, the transmission's inside. That's just
yeah.
The transfer case has got 3 bolts that hold the housing, that transfer case housing, to the transmission. And so I actually had to pull the whole transfer case apart to split it.
Yeah, I've read about that. I'm still learning a lot about these, but I've heard about the challenge. That's that looks like a high torque, like a newer.
Yeah, I think I actually put that starter on.
Yeah, that's not the same starter that we have. Is this electronic, or is that got points? You know?
No, I don't think it's it's electronic. It's got a.
You got a coil? Coil's on there somewhere, probably.
Yeah, it should be, because I'm pretty sure that's a. It may be on.
Fuel pump looks fairly new. This is an electronic ignition distributor, right?
Yeah, I know nothing about that thing.
All right, we're home from our excursion here with our new, or new to us, 2F motor. Thought I'd give you a little inventory of what all we got. So we got the 2F motor, and this is, he said, a fairly recently rebuilt carburetor. When he bought it, it came with this carburetor, and he said he had trouble with it running, and so he bought a carb kit to rebuild it, but never rebuilt it. He was going to give us, never rebuilt it. He was going to give us the carb kit, but he couldn't find it. So this carburetor he bought from somebody who had rebuilt it. And so we've got two carburetors. We got a alternator here. This is the motor mount bracket. Now this came out of an F60, so it's going to have a little bit different brackets. That bracket actually looks the same, but the bracket that's on the passenger side is a little different. One thing I'm excited about is this has electronic ignition. Ours does not. So here's the coil. He said this was his daily driver, so should be fairly well running motor. He just pulled it out a week or so ago. This, I believe, is an electronic ignition. And look at that, it's got a dirt dauber nest right there. So ours does not have electronic ignition, and so I'm excited about that. The fuel pump is brand new. He had just put that on not too long ago. This, I believe, is a high torque mini starter, so it's nicer than ours. So there are some parts on here that we're definitely going to be able to use right away. I'm going to probably sell this air cleaner because I already have one, and I know these things go pretty easily. All right, so included with this also got a radiator, which this radiator is for an FJ60 and the shroud. So I'm going to look and see what these are worth. This is a good radiator. He was using it, no holes. I may clean up that shroud and paint it, try to make it look as good as possible before I try to sell it. Like I said, this transmission is a different model transmission than the one that came in my 77 FJ40. So I'm going to research and find out. This may be a better transmission, better synchros, I don't know. I think the splines, number of splines and all are the same. This is a split transfer case model, which I think, I'm not sure if mine is or not. I'll have to check. But anyways, tons of great stuff on here. I'm excited about having this motor also for reference, because I did take pictures and I know how these heater hoses and all are routed, but it'll be nice to be able to just look at this one and see. It's got the oil cooler on it, which I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that or sell that. I've read some stuff online that some people say they love it, it's great. Some people say no, you don't need it, don't use it. So we'll see. Lots of great stuff on here to use. I think I mentioned the alternator and the coil, but I also got, he gave me a air conditioning compressor, and I guess this was on there too. This is a drive shaft loop that goes on here, or back. No, I'm sorry, on the other side, over here. Mine doesn't have that. I'll check and see if I can use that. Not sure if I can. But back to this compressor, the clutch does turn. It does work. So hopefully, I could, if nothing else, maybe somebody might want that for the core. I'll seal these up. Maybe too late, but looks clean. All right, there she is. All right, guys, thanks for watching another one of our videos. We got more videos coming. We got one on the oil pan and the oil pump. We got one on the clutch and the rear main seal. So keep watching. Don't forget that if you like these videos, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook. Be sure to comment below and let us know what you like, what you don't like. And thanks again for watching.